Welcome to the F1Stop show. I'm your host Sam Oni, and this is episode three or two. No,
Free.
wait,
Definitely free.
it's episode three. Right, we can't have that. Can't have that with the opening race of the season. Can't have that. Right, episode three. Wes Spearman is with me tonight, as always. Wes, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm pretty good, thanks. Decentish race, I think, to start off the season. Few good moments, especially from a certain Fernando Alonso, which we'll get onto a bit later. But yeah, I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. You know, I'm just glad F1 is back and opening race in Bahrain certainly didn't disappoint. There was, there was a lot happening in the race other than Max Verstappen only Max Verstappen's name being heard twice, only when they were announcing the grid and when he finished. That's how brilliant his race was.
Yeah, I mean, you expect someone like Verstappen to be like fully in the limelight, don't you? But yeah, I barely watching back the highlights, the Sky highlights, and I think the only time I saw him was at the race start, and then at the end of the race when he won a million seconds in front of Sergio Perez. Um, so yeah, I know we said it last year, but dominant start to the season from Verstappen. This,
Yeah.
of course, means that he won't go on to win the World Championship because he won the opening race of the season. That stat going back to
Oh,
2017.
wow.
No, I'm sure he'll win the championship again this year. Based on, I know it's only one race, but Red Bull they're just so much quicker. I think George Russell has already said, "Oh yeah, Red Bull are going to win every race," which is a bit of a defeatist mentality, I think. Um, but yeah, Red Bull were just so much quicker when they pole for Verstappen. Just get the times at pole by only a tenth of a second, or just over a tenth of a second from Perez. Um, Fastest lap was actually Zhou Guan Yu with a 1:33.9 or almost 1:34. Right at the end of the race, they were trying to get the fastest lap point. Can't quite remember where he finished now. Not in the top 10, so he finished last out of the or 16th rather. Not did Norris retire? He might have, did Norris retire at the end? I can't remember. Anyway, back to back to Verstappen and Red Bull. Yeah, hardly saw Verstappen at all in the race, and that's because he was so far ahead of everyone else. And I mean, I hope Ferrari and Mercedes, and I suppose to some extent Aston Martin, given their start to the season, can challenge Red Bull, because it would be pretty boring if we got another however many years of just one team dominating like we had with Mercedes in the turbo hybrid era. We still are in the turbo hybrid era, but before the regulation changes last year. Before that, we had Red Bull. Before that, we had Ferrari. And every time there are these new regulations, you just see one team absolutely nail it. And arguably with a bit of cheating in Red Bull's case, a bit of overspending on the lunch buffets and stuff. But yeah, I hope we get to see some proper battles for the lead over the course of the season, because I still think it was a decent race. But in terms of battles for the lead, there weren't any, were there?
Not really, no. I think, well, you could say Verstappen was out in a world of his own, but I think the drama was more between the likes of Perez, Leclerc for Ferrari, Sainz, the two Mercedes guys, and in particular Aston Martin's Fernando Alonso, because it is him that you know set the race alive. To be honest, because well, Alonso started. Let's talk about the race then, because you know off the line it was Verstappen got off nicely. Everything seemed all plain sailing until maybe like I think just after just towards the end of the first lap, uh, Stroll, Fernando's teammate, clips him. I think he clips his right rear tire or something, and he places, and you're probably thinking, oh, Fernando Alonso, how's he going to come back from this race? But I must say, how he done it was very, very impressive.
Yeah, I think it was at turn 4 when him and Stroll touched wheels, and I think Alonso was going for a wider line and more of a later apex, whereas Stroll seemed to be going for a bit of a dive bomb, to be honest. And I think Stroll's front ring, as you say, clipped Alonso's right rear tyre. Alonso lost a few places, and luckily, I suppose it didn't matter too much. Obviously, Alonso finished third. I don't think many people would have expected that. A couple of weeks ago, I suppose Aston Martin they gained I think the second most amount of time after Williams in testing, and I mean Williams, they've done all right. They got still bottom half of the grid if you like, but close to almost point scoring places. Aston Martin just seemed this race to last year's Bahrain Grand Prix for Aston Martin, and Aston Martin's season last year as a whole, where they finished 7th, 8th out of the 10 constructors. Pretty poor season overall, and for Alonso to finish third in the opening race of the season and Stroll to finish 6th as well. I mean, I know Stroll is like a bit of a pay driver, not a bit. He is a pay driver, but you got to commend him because a week ago he was in a quite a not massively severe, but still a pretty nasty accident on a bike, I think, and with all loads of injuries to arms, legs, what have you. I've seen pictures of him all sort of bandaged up and in hospital. I can't remember exactly what the injuries were, but for him to race in the car in Bahrain, a week or two after, as I say, a pretty nasty accident and to finish 6th as well is a pretty good achievement, if you ask me. For Aston Martin, they've just got an incredible start to the season, and can we see them challenge the likes of? I mean, they were challenging Mercedes in Bahrain. Can they challenge the likes of Ferrari? Can they challenge Perez, Verstappen, maybe not race wins, but for more consistent podium? I'd hate to see that this is just a one-off for Aston Martin and Alonso. I mean, it's Alonso's 99th podium in Formula One. I think it's the 5th team he scored a podium for in Formula One. I know it's only one race, but it'd be good to see him bring up that 100. And I think last year we were saying, what sort of move is this going to be for Alonso? It seems a bit of a weird one, him jumping ship from Alpine, Team Enstone, if you like, to Aston Martin. Seems a bit of a weird one, but it's paid off. Has Alonso for maybe the first time in his career, second time maybe, made a good career move, if you like. Alonso hasn't had the greatest career moves. He moved to obviously double world champion with Renault, then moved to McLaren where he had the massive falling out with Hamilton and Spygate and all that. Moved to Renault, where they had Crashgate in 2008, fixing the Singapore Grand Prix. Moved to Ferrari just as they were on a downturn. Obviously moved to McLaren with infamous GP2 engine. Then Alpine, and again went okay, I guess. And now Aston Martin. Hopefully it pays off for him.
Hopefully it does. I mean, like I said, I think we were talking during the week, maybe I think probably just on Monday, and I said it was a great result from Aston Martin and Alonso, but it's gonna take me 4-5 races to really think that can they challenge the big three. And I think that's the thing, because in testing they showed some pretty impressive performances, but it seems like this result for Aston Martin has propelled them. It's going to propel them for the season, because we've got Saudi Arabia, Australia, I believe, between now and the end of the month into April as well. So, and then a few races after that. So, it's gonna take a few races. I want to see. I don't want this to be like a one-hit wonder, one race wonder. I want to see more results. And what was your favorite part of the race, other than Alonso's podium?
Um,
what was your favorite? Was there any like on track battles that you thought, wow, this is really interesting. It's really great.
I suppose a couple. I think when Alonso was taking on the two Mercedes, I think one was fairly early on. In the race, he was taking on Russell for P5, I think it was. Again, turn four. I think turn four is the ultimate overtaking point in
Yeah.
Bahrain. It's one of the few places you can um, properly plan an overtake. Alonso side by side with Russell, I think. I can't quite remember. I can't remember if Russell overtook Alonso going into turn one or turn two. And they were side by side down the straight going into turn four, and then Alonso sails past with DRS, goes around turn four, keeps the position. Again, maybe later on when Alonso again battling with the other Mercedes, Lewis Hamilton, lap 37 again for P5. Alonso DRS down to turn four, initially gets past Hamilton, but I think he loses the rear end on the exit just a little bit, which allows Hamilton to regain that position back, and then side by side, right through the squealy bit leading up to turn 8, turn 9, whatever it is. It's just a fantastic bit of racing between two of the greatest drivers in ever in F1, I suppose. Stats wise, Hamilton is better, and he probably is a better driver on par with Alonso. Yeah, just a great moment. And I think another one was, I know I've mentioned two already, but another one has just come to me as well. I think it was after the virtual safety car restart, down to turn 10, where I think it was Sainz locked up going into turn 10, and again Alonso DRS on that back straight, just sails past Sainz. Down, I think he went down the inside of turn 10 and claimed, was it P3, I think it was, towards the back end of the race. And just three absolutely brilliant moments of racing from Alonso.
3. That was the number. That was the number of the day for Sunday, because 3 billion overtakes, third on the podium. Yeah. I couldn't agree with you more. I thought those were my favorite parts of the race as well. But yeah, Aston Martin. Let's just hope they keep up this stunning start to the season. Now, in other news, Mercedes, Ferrari, and all the other teams down the grid, they didn't have such a good race. Notably Ferrari. It looks like, you see, the thing with Ferrari is like, you think season after season it's gonna be their season, but it ends up that strategies is always the problem. Strategies was a big thing last year, and and technical issues with the car issues as well, and it repeated itself on Sunday. Cue Charles Leclerc.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
Leclerc again, isn't it? Lap, was it 41? I think it was there or thereabouts. Engine issues, loss of power. So shoes on the other foot now for Ferrari. It's a vice versa of what happened last year, where the Red Bull's DNF. Now it's Ferrari's turn to DNF in Bahrain. But yeah, I mean, Ferrari, they had decent pace. I think certainly in qualifying they weren't too far off the Red Bulls. Verstappen on pole with a 129.7, Leclerc in third with a 130 dead. But yeah, I mean, if you've got a fast car, you need it to be reliable as well. And it seemed Leclerc might already be taking an engine penalty on the second race of the season, when I suppose technically they're only allowed to use a maximum of 3 engines in the season, a certain amount of parts as well, and you're taking an engine penalty going into the second race in Jeddah. Yeah, it's probably not looking too great for Ferrari at the moment. I mean, Sainz did. I mean, he did okay, 4th place in the end. Would have liked to have held on to that third, but he finished 10 seconds behind Alonso, which is a huge margin for Ferrari to sort of reel in. And is it going to be a case of, are they going to be battling with Red Bull at all this season? I know it's only one race, but they were just so off the race pace of the Red Bulls, and it's going to be. Are we going to be relying on for them in places like Monaco and Singapore, perhaps places where you or Spain, maybe places where you can't really overtake? But if one of them gets
Yeah.
on pole, then that's just it. Lights to flag, race win. Yeah, it'd be nice to see them battle wide. Mercedes again, pretty poor start to the season by Mercedes standards. Hamilton in fifth, Russell in seventh, behind Stroll. It's not really even best of the rest at that point, is it? When you've got the two Aston Martins in the mix as well. Yeah, pretty poor start again for Mercedes. Mentioned earlier, Russell saying, "Oh, Red Bull are going to win all the races." I don't think they will. I think one of Ferrari, Mercedes will win a race. This or multiple races this season.
I think Ferrari will win more races than Mercedes this season.
Yeah,
That's just
yeah, I think they win as well. Yeah, it's just Mercedes. What has happened the last year and a bit for Mercedes? Poor last season. Yes, they gained some pace towards the back end of 2022, but yeah, to start 2023 in fifth and seventh is not where they'd want to be at all.
so. What happens now? I mean, next week is Saudi Arabia, so they've got a bit of time to get the car in order. But yeah, Mercedes not doing so great. McLaren, well, poor from them, and your favorite team, Oscar Piastri, who made his debut in Bahrain, and it ended in retirement.
Yeah, very early on in the race as well. Lap 14, Piastri was out. I'm not entirely sure what the issue was, whether it was engine or just electricals, because I think he went to pit and then replaced the steering wheel. But I think the engine shut down as well. I'm not entirely sure what happened or whether it was a gearbox issue. A whole multitude of things, perhaps. But yeah, put an extremely poor start to the season for McLaren to have one of their cars DNF and Lando Norris finish last of the classified finishers. Is pretty poor, and maybe they should spend more time developing their car rather than putting advertising screens on the car, if you like. I think I saw it might have been on their TikTok actually, where they were sort of explaining what the dynamic advertising or whatever it is on the car, and say, "Oh, it only weighs 190 grams," but 190 grams in motorsport terms, in F1 terms, is a lot of weight. I mean, how much does a sticker weigh to put on the car? 2 grams, 3 grams? I don't know, but 190 grams seems like an awful lot just for a bit of advertising. And I guess sponsors stipulations come into that as well. They say, "Oh, let's put this on the car. It looks cool." Yeah, it looks cool, but if you're not winning races, if you're not getting TV time, then what does it matter? It's a horrible start from McLaren. I think they didn't have all the upgrades they wanted to bring from testing, so they might be a bit quicker next week in Jeddah. But yeah, it's not looking like a good year to be a McLaren fan again. You can say that
Yeah,
a lot of times in recent years.
and this season, I came into the season thinking that Ferrari can really, pull something out of the bag and really challenge for the title. But I just have that feeling in the back of my mind that technical issues and strategy may or may not, just get in the way. Hopefully it doesn't continue because I really feel that, they can really mount a challenge to Red Bull. So I'm hopeful. Um, Hopefully they sort out Charles Leclerc's car, and Carlos Sainz gets involved as well. Try and knock on the door of his teammate, and hopefully the two Red Bull guys in Verstappen and Perez. Um, I don't know if there's anything else you want to talk about in the race, but one funny but not so funny moment in the race was time penalties. So, time penalty. What is a time penalty? A time penalty is a slight, well, whereas back me up with my definition, is a time penalty is a slight punishment, if you like, for drivers who make infringements on the track. So that could be uh, going off the track, off the runoff areas, or colliding with another driver, or not following, protocol with the safety car, if you like. But if you're Esteban Ocon and you, well, I don't know how he got those penalties, but having three time penalties, you're meant to serve them like when you're supposed to serve them, but well, it didn't work out so well.
No, not at all. Free, as you say, free time penalties for Esteban Ocon, and I think he retired in the end, so it didn't really matter, I suppose, in the grand scheme of things. Yeah, his first, he got a 5-second penalty for overshooting his grid slot. So I think driving too far forwards into his spot on the grid at the start of the race. So we got a time penalty for that, essentially before the race has even begun, if you like.
Well,
You think? I
sorry,
think
yeah, sorry, but right. So the formation lap, you warm up your tires and everything. I get all that stuff, and then you have to go into your grid slot. I guess it's pure racecraft, but like it's almost like parking, isn't it? Parking into your designated grid slot, but going a bit forward, like I don't get it.
rules, I suppose. That's what the lines are for. Got to be in those lines. Um, I think they have a marking, a yellow marking to the side where the front wheel has to be. I know I've seen some drivers in the past on certain tracks sort of try and get over to one side of their grid slot because it's a cleaner side of the track or something. You have a better line on. It's only like inches, literally, feet perhaps, but the smallest of margins often make the biggest of differences in
Wow.
elite sport. Whether it was a mistake or a bit of gamesmanship from Ocon to try and get a better line, better start. Obviously didn't work. He got a 5-second time penalty for that. He then got a 10-second penalty for incorrectly serving his 5-second penalty in the at his pit stop. Whether he took too long to take it, I can't exactly remember now, or whether they didn't wait the 5 seconds before doing work on the car in the pit stop. I'm not too sure what happened. And the third one was for speeding in the pit lane.
Oh,
The cars have I think speed limiters when they go into the pits. Maybe he didn't switch that on at the right time, or just a bit too quick going into the pits. Again, I'm not exactly sure what happened, but 20 seconds of time penalties spread across 3 different penalties for Ocon, and him to retire as well. But yeah, not a great start for Alpine. Where did Gasly finish? Actually, I don't think did Gasly get points. Yeah, he
actually
got
finished in the top 10.
two points in ninth. So yeah, not a great start for Alpine, given they were, I think, best of the rest last year. I think they finished fourth in the constructors.
Mm.
To get only 2 points from their opening weekend is a bit disappointing for them. But yeah, serving penalties right, and I mean, I suppose Ocon would have retired anyway, but yeah, don't. It's just simple things really that often make the big differences.
Hmm. Oh. So in the real world, Ocon's grid penalty is almost like it's almost like parallel parking, if you like. So if you park incorrectly, well, it's just gonna look awkward, isn't it? You know?
Or you'll get a
Yeah.
fine.
Or you'll get a fine. Exactly. Exactly. So that well, so much happened in the race. Verstappen's name was barely mentioned. Fernando Alonso rolled back the years for his new team to finish third, his 99th podium of his F1 career, and Esteban Ocon was hit with 3 time penalties, one in which he served incorrectly, so he had to serve it again. Funny times, funny times. How would you rate Bahrain then? How would you rate the race out of 10?
um, I'd say it was a decent race. I think it had its moments. Like you mentioned, those 3 superb overtakes with Alonso. You had a bit of battle for second place between Perez and Leclerc at one point. I think overall, it was a decent start to the season. Not fantastic, but decent. So I think play it a bit safe. I'll give it a 7.
7 is like the average.
Maybe a 6 actually.
Okay.
It was good. It wouldn't stand out, if you know what I mean.
Okay, so should we say for this season, 6 out of 10 is like average?
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah, probably just above average.
Just above
6 out of 10.
6 out of 10, just above average. So anything higher than that, then you're in the good books. Yeah, my favorite part of the race was Alonso's battle with the 2 Mercedes guys, particularly with George Russell. It just shows the experience he has in driving his Formula One car, and 99 podiums in F1. I think his last one was in the 2021 season. Now, I'm not even going to try and guess what race that was, because do you want to help me out here?
I want to say it was Qatar. I'm not entirely sure.
That's a shout.
It was it was relatively recent. I think. Was it Qatar? It was Qatar.
Wow.
I don't think he's got one in between Bahrain this year and Qatar 21.
No.
Yeah, 3rd place in Qatar. And Qatar's back on the calendar this year as well, later in the season.
Interesting. So, out of 10, Bahrain, I'd say 6.5. 6.5 out of 10. You know, as you said, it had its moments. Best part was Alonso and his battle with the 2 Mercedes guys, as mentioned. And yeah, hopefully all the teams for Saudi Arabia, they get their car, in tip-top shape, and we see more exciting racing, and hopefully not just a Red Bull, like, you know what I mean, like not just like Red Bull sailing away with it. We want to see competitive racing. Hopefully the Ferraris of Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz can really give Red Bull a real battle and produce some results.
Yeah, I mean, as you say, it would be nice to have more of a battle. We have had a little bit of a battle last year, and then obviously the main battle in 21. But yeah, we haven't seen the like of a proper championship battle since ages. 2016, I suppose. Hamilton and Rosberg. And before that, maybe I think it was one of the Vettel years from 2010 to 2013 where going into the last race, any one of about 3 drivers could have won. It was like between Alonso, Vettel, and someone else. I think a Renault. I'm not sure. But yeah, besides those, we haven't really had any close championship battles, and by the looks of it, we're not going to get one this season either.
Well, that's the opening. That's the opening race of the season with Bahrain. F1 is officially back, and the next race is in Saudi Arabia from the 17th to the 19th of March. Well, we hope you've enjoyed this episode of F1Stop Show. I've been your host, Sam Oney. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and you can also email us as well at f1stopshow@gmail.com. So it's a goodbye from me, bye-bye, and it's a goodbye from Wes.
Bye-bye.
And we'll see you next time for the preview of Saudi Arabia.